12 years, and I actually just finished my master's in marketing, and I wanted to spend some time with my clients and the dentists that we would to kind of let them know about the research that I did about patient reviews. So the topic has interested me because I work with a lot of practices that are struggling with managing their reputation online. And the fact of the matter is that people care about reviews. There are tons of stats out there that talk about how much credibility they give online reviews. This year is a stat from Solution Reach that 77% online reviews before choosing a medical provider. And this is another stat that says that consumers trust the reviews of people they don't even know. So it's important that practices are considering this when they have a marketing plan, that having a plan in place to manage your reputation online is important. And most of all, you guys care. You care when somebody says something about you that whether it's positive or negative, you have a reaction to it, and it's natural to feel emotional if somebody says something negative about you. And unfortunately, you don't have the power to delete it. So as much as we'd like to, when there is a negative review, we have to handle it in the public forum and do it well. So a lot of you who work with GPM might be aware of the product Rave Reviews. And Rave Reviews is a service that helps our practices keep an eye on all the different review sites associated with their practice. It also has some functionality to allow an easier process for the patient if you ask them for a review. But through this connection, our clients, we have over 11,000 reviews that we were able to analyze, and over 141 dentists who are participating in this software. I do want to mention that I am excluding certain sites from what I'm evaluating. If you're familiar with Demandforce or Smile Reminder or Ratabiz, these are all software platforms that are automatically sending review requests to a patient who's come into the practice. And I just don't see them as having as much credibility as those that require a user profile associated with it. It also, the only way that you're going to find these reviews is if somebody is searching for your name specifically. So while it's nice to have a constantly generated list of reviews for you to use maybe on your website, Demandforce, Smile Reminder, and Ratabiz really don't hold the same weight as reviews that come from Google. Something that I noticed when I evaluated all of the review data is that some of the reviews are shared across different platforms. So I noticed, for example, that Rate a Dentist often borrows reviews from Google, or that Super Pages and Yellow Pages have some shared reviews, and Vitals and Health Grades. Well, there's no relationship between Vitals and Health Grades. They did borrow several of the Spanish reviews. So it may just be that they recognize that their visitors needed some more Spanish content and went ahead and used some of the reviews they found on other sites to fulfill that need. So here's the fun part, and it's about how all of the practices measure up, and maybe you can compare your own practice to these numbers. The average online number of reviews practice is 80. And one of the things that all of my research would talk about is whether or not patients are just going on the web to complain. They call it customer complaining behavior. And if you've ever heard the stat about when somebody's happy, they might tell 1 or 2 friends, but if they are upset, they're going to go and tell 12 people. Well, it doesn't appear to be the case when it comes to online reviews. Reviews are overwhelmingly positive. So it was off the charts. I mean, over 10,000 of the 11,314 reviews were actually 5-star reviews. And the average star rating for a dental practice was 4.82 stars. So if you're coming in higher than that, then you're doing great. And if you're coming in a little lower than that, maybe you have a little work to do. And these are some of the words that when I ran a word cloud on all the words in the 11,000 plus reviews came up as being used the most frequently. And I took that a little bit further just to see what things are people mentioning in reviews when they're talking about their dentist. The number one thing on here you'll notice is actually the team. So when someone feels compelled to write a review, very often what they're going to be mentioning is the staff and their experience with the staff. The dentist is just below that. The sites that we see getting the highest number of reviews are Google, Facebook, and Yelp. And each review site has a little bit of a different norm when it comes to what their average star rating is. It probably doesn't surprise many of my clients anyway that Yelp comes in the lowest of these top 3 at 4.7 stars. They do have a little bit more particular rules when it comes to Yelp and making sure that the reviewer is a valid reviewer. And as a result, they do see a little bit of a lower average star rating. But at 972 reviews, for as much as Yelp talks about, how popular they are for searching dentists, that was a lot lower than I expected. So Google is definitely number one. They have over 49% of the total reviews that I was looking through. And just for Rich, yes, I will be sending these slides afterwards. If you want to chat me any questions, please feel free to do so, and I can either answer them during the webinar or I can answer them when we get to the end of this. So what about these guys, these 2.9% that feel so compelled to go online and share a negative experience? 52% of all dentists have a 1-star review. So if you don't have one yet, don't think you're invincible. It certainly happens to even the best of the dentists that we work with, and there can be any number of reasons that you would get a 1-star review. You are not alone. One of the things I was interested in is whether or not people who go and leave a negative review spend the time to share that in multiple platforms. It's something that I've seen, but I didn't know, statistically, how often does it actually happen? So of the 405 negative reviews, the 1- and 2-star reviews, I evaluated the data to figure out, how many people actually go ahead and leave that review in multiple places. And it's 11%, so only 47 of the 405 decided that they wanted to go and share it in additional locations. Like they'll go to your Facebook page and to your Google page and really just try and ruin your reputation. So it doesn't happen very often. 11% wasn't as high as I thought it was going to be, but it certainly does happen. When it comes to negative reviews, I evaluated those and what are the things that people are talking about. And while dentist rises to the top of this list, I feel like the reason is because no matter who along the way has upset them, they ultimately hold the dentist responsible for their experience. So that is the number one thing that's mentioned when a negative review is placed. And these are some real stories that I've dealt with for clients that work with GPM, and 1-star reviews aren't always an upset patient. They can be a disgruntled ex-employee or a competitor gone rogue. These are things that Yelp actually is trying to protect you from by having recommended reviews and not recommended reviews. They want to know that somebody truly was at your practice and had that experience. There are also things that may be a little bit out of your control, which might be related to their insurance or a billing nightmare. Another thing might be that the doctor they used to go to might not have had the same philosophies as your practice does, and they would have indicated that, you know, the level of care that I provide, my previous dentist said I didn't have any cavities. What do you mean I have 3 cavities? So it absolutely happens, and there's ways to handle it to really manage your reputation as best you can online. So when you get a 1-star review, you can do all of these things. You can get mad, you can do air kicks, you could listen to gangster rap, but you can't violate their privacy and you can't delete the review. There are some occasions where you can legally go after someone if you know for sure that it was an ex-employee or a competitor, but it's not Google who's going to be taking it down for you. It's the threat of legal action that may motivate that person to remove the review. But if you're holding your breath for Google to take down a negative review, that's probably not going to happen. So violating their privacy. I know this is a sticky topic. I know it's not fair that you can't respond to somebody in the same way that they're sharing their experience online. It's unfortunate that you're bound by HIPAA and they're not, so they can share with the world what their experience was like, and it may not be very true. What I would recommend is to take a deep breath, try and make it right. I always encourage my practices to try and read that patient offline before they respond publicly. So if you have a patient whose name you recognize and you can look at their last visit and try and understand what might have went wrong, if there is anything that you can do to make it right, that could lead that patient to amend the review, and that would be a positive outcome. Or it can be that, you know, you recognize that the situation isn't one that you're going to be able to resolve, and you're going to have to respond in the public forum, but you can do so in a way that makes you look like the bigger person. So how do you respond? I know you might be emotional about it. You might feel like they're not representing the story accurately. I definitely recommend taking the high road. So this is a sample response that one of the practices I work with actually wrote. And if you're here, you might even recognize it. I think this is a really great way to articulate the fact that you are bound by different rules than they are. So they say, unfortunately, there are important details from your retelling of events that are missing. Out of respect, we will not fill in the blanks with the missing details. Now, to me, this is perfect. I know that you want to go into detail about how they called you on a Saturday and they were just in town for the weekend and you didn't get to do an x-ray, and whatever the case might be, you can't share those patient details. And if you use a response like this, you're really going to just show that you're taking the higher road, and it does point out to somebody who might be reading that 1-star review that they're not telling the full story. So you must ask for reviews, and this is really important, but I do want to give you guys an update on some of the latest policy changes for Google. And recently they have announced that they are going to be penalizing companies that may be restricting people from leaving 1, 2, or 3-star reviews. So if you're a Rave Reviews customer, or if you are someone who uses Bird Eye or Doctable or any of those review softwares, what you need to know is that they're going to penalize you if you restrict somebody who chooses 3, 2, or 1 stars from going ahead and leaving their reviews in social media. So this is a change, and to me it makes the Rave Reviews software even a better tool, because if you have automated review requests going out there, every single person who's getting a review request could potentially leave you a review. And if you have a software like Rave Reviews, then what you're going to be doing is asking the patients that you know will leave you a positive review versus sending it out to everyone. So some software offers it one way and some software offers it the other. I recommend the ones, because of this policy change, that will let you send them on demand. It's one more thing for your team to do, but by following Google's rules, you are likely to rise to the top when it comes to search engine results. So just to restate that again, if your software is letting somebody choose 1, 2, 3 stars and still allows them the opportunity to go to social media to choose Facebook, Google, whatever, to leave your review, that's what it needs to do for it to be within Google's guidelines. So at the practice, these are some tips you can give to your team to help identify opportunities to ask for reviews. So if you hear someone raving about you, if you hear, Dr. Smith, I can't believe it, that didn't hurt at all, or wow, I love my smile, or you girls are always so kind to me, or I actually look forward to coming. Any of the things that you hear where somebody is off the cuff sharing with you that they've had a great experience, that's exactly when you want to ask them for the review. If they didn't rave during their experience, there's always an opportunity to find that inroad to ask them for a review. And so what I'd like you to memorize this question, especially for your front desk people, as somebody's ready to leave, ask them, how was your visit today? And hopefully they're going to say something nice. Hopefully that you've provided them with an experience that they want to say something positive about. And at that point, you can say something like this. Thanks, Sally. We're so glad you're happy with our visit. After you leave today, you're actually going to receive a request from our software. We would love it if you could share your experience online. So this kind of it greases the pipe and makes sure that we get things headed in the right direction, and asking really does matter. If you do send out a request without having asked, you're a lot less likely to get them to go ahead and leave you a review than if you personally went ahead and asked them. The other thing I want to say is that you dentists are not off the hook when it comes to asking for reviews. So 80% of patients will leave a review if the doctor asks them to. And that's because they put you a little bit on a pedestal. You have provided them care, you've taken care of them, they feel a sense of responsibility towards you. Of course, anyone in the practice can ask for a review, but if the doctor takes the time to ask for the review, you're going to see stronger results. And the other thing I want you to take away from this webinar is that the voice of the crowd wins. So if you see that one little golden retriever in the middle of all these sheep, that's how I'd like you to think of your 1-star reviews. If they are not in line with all of the other reviews that you're receiving, then they're going to be the weirdo. They're not going to stand out to someone who is looking over what practice they want to go to. They're going to be able to identify, okay, well, this person's probably just a crazy person. Everybody else who goes here is really appreciating the care that they provide. Another reason you have to continue to ask for reviews is just some simple math. So if you have a 5-star rating and you have 3 reviews, and you go ahead and you get that 1-star review one day, you're going to have a huge impact to your star rating. Whereas if you have 5 stars, but you have more reviews, in this case, I use 20, which is a lot lower than a lot of the practices we work with, that 1-star review is going to have less of an impact. So it's kind of like an insurance policy. By continuing to ask for reviews, you know if you're providing a good experience, and if somebody says something positive, take that opportunity to ask them. Having those positive reviews out there prevent that 1-star reviewer from taking over or having a strong impact on your overall star rating. I also wanted to share with you that we have some really great resources on our site to check out. We've been blogging a lot recently about the topic of reviews. Tomorrow there's going to be a blog out by my colleague Allison about what you need to know about the new review policy. So if you want all the details of the rules that Google is changing, check that out. There's also some other ones about how to avoid feedback fatigue, how your dental office can play by Yelp's rules. That's a really tricky one. A lot of my practices have questions about Yelp specifically. I've given you some great reputation management solutions for dentists. You don't have to have rave reviews. You don't have to have Bird Eye. There's tons of them out there. Having a review platform is going to help you to acquire these reviews. And it should be a part of every practice's marketing to really manage that online reputation and grow it. And then some other blogs here about Yelp and patient feedback, which can help you understand, the landscape of your online reputation. The other things that we have available to you guys are a guide on how to ask for reviews. So you heard me give some advice today on how you can bring it up at the practice, that easy question of how was your visit today, or if you identify the moment when somebody's saying something nice about the practice. These are all opportunities, and maybe downloading this and sharing it with the team would help them as a guideline to asking for those reviews. If you do find yourself in a situation where you have a 1-star review, we also have a great document that kind of details how to go about responding to that review. So a lot of it I covered today, but if you need a refresher, or if the day comes when, heaven forbid, somebody leaves you a 1-star review, please do feel free to download these free tools, and they can be of help. It's a lot harder to be objective when you get a 1-star review, but if you can take a day, you do want to respond to it in a public forum, and these tips and tools on how to do that will guide you through that. Now, I rallied through a lot of information. I promised to take about a half hour of time. If there are any questions that you have, I am going to send this deck out to everybody who attended. So you'll have it to follow up, but you're also welcome to reach out to me about any specific questions you have regarding reviews, or if there was something I didn't cover today that you were hoping that I would cover, please feel free to either give me a call or shoot me an email. My address is right there on the screen. And other than that, I appreciate you guys taking your lunch hour with me. I know that things are busy at the practices, but I hope this time frame worked for everybody, and just let us know if there are any other topics that you're interested in hearing about. We'd be happy to help you guys out in any way we can. So thank you again.